Let's kick off with what might be the absolute dumbest mistake in serial killer history. We're talking about Dennis Rader, better known as the BTK killer. Those letters stood for bind, torture, kill, which was his horrifying signature method. Between 1974 and 1991, this man terrorized Wichita, Kansas, murdering at least 10 innocent people in their own homes. After going silent for over a decade, Rader got bored in 2004. He missed the spotlight. He missed the fear he created. So this guy decided to start playing games with the police again, sending them letters and puzzles like some kind of twisted genius. Rader really thought he was brilliant. He had studied criminal justice in college. He worked as a compliance officer for Park City, Kansas. He even installed security systems for ADT, the home security company. The irony is almost too perfect, right? This monster was literally helping people protect themselves while being one of the most dangerous people in the state. Fast forward to 2005. Rader wanted to communicate more with the police, but he had a concern. He wanted to send them information on a floppy disk, but he wasn't sure if the disk could be traced back to him. So what did this criminal mastermind do? He asked the police directly. In one of his letters, Dennis Rader literally wrote to the Wichita Police Department asking, "Can I communicate with a floppy disk and not be traced to a computer?" He actually expected an honest answer from the people actively hunting him down. The police saw the golden opportunity. They responded through a newspaper advertisement saying, "Rex, it will be okay." They straight up lied to his face, and he completely fell for it. Feeling totally reassured, Rader sent them a purple floppy disk in February of 2005. He probably felt so clever, so untouchable. But within just a few days, computer forensic specialists examined that disk and found deleted metadata that pointed directly to Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, Kansas. The investigation revealed that the last person to modify a document on that disk was someone named Dennis. When they cross-referenced this with the church records, they found Dennis Rader was the president of the church council. Everything started clicking into place. Police moved quickly. They obtained a warrant and got DNA from Rader's daughter's medical records. When they tested it against DNA evidence from the crime scenes, it was a perfect match. On February 25, 2005, just days after sending that floppy disk, Dennis Rader was arrested while driving near his home. When police confronted him, he confessed almost immediately, actually seeming proud to finally talk about all his crimes. Think about the sheer stupidity here. This man had successfully hidden his identity for 31 years. He'd committed 10 brutal murders and completely evaded one of the biggest manhunts in Kansas history. He could have lived the rest of his life as a free man, but his massive ego couldn't handle being forgotten. Dennis Rader is now serving 10 consecutive life sentences, all because he asked the cops if it was safe to send them evidence, believed their answer, and handed them exactly what they needed to lock him up forever. Ted Bundy is arguably the most famous serial killer in American history. Charming, intelligent, good-looking, he's been the subject of countless documentaries, movies, and books. He confessed to murdering 30 women, though the actual number is believed to be much higher, possibly over 100 victims across multiple states. But here's what's fascinating. Despite his reputation as this criminal mastermind, Bundy was caught multiple times due to the dumbest, most avoidable mistakes. We're talking basic traffic violations and stolen vehicles, the kind of stuff that gets regular people pulled over every single day. Bundy's first major arrest came in August of 1975 when a Utah Highway Patrol officer pulled him over for failing to stop at a stop sign and then fleeing. When the officer searched his Volkswagen Beetle, he found handcuffs, an ice pick, a crowbar, rope, wire, and a ski mask. Not exactly your typical roadside emergency kit, right? This traffic stop led to his first conviction for kidnapping, but Bundy wasn't done making stupid decisions. In 1977, while awaiting trial in Colorado, he escaped from custody not once, but twice. The first time, he jumped out of a second-story courthouse window. They caught him 6 days later. The second time, he squeezed through a small opening in his jail cell ceiling. After his second escape, Bundy went on another killing spree in Florida, murdering at least 3 more women in January and February of 1978. And how did this brilliant escape artist, this supposedly cunning predator, finally get caught for good? Another traffic stop. On February 15, 1978, Pensacola police officer David Lee pulled over a Volkswagen Beetle for driving erratically at 1:30 in the morning. When he approached the vehicle, Bundy tried to flee on foot. After a brief struggle, Lee subdued him and placed him under arrest. The car Bundy was driving? Stolen, of course. At first, Officer Lee had no idea he'd just arrested one of America's most wanted fugitives. It wasn't until they got to the station and ran Bundy's name through the system that everything unraveled. The stolen car led to a search, which connected him to multiple murders in Florida. Let's break down Bundy's pattern of stupidity. He drove stolen cars repeatedly. He couldn't follow basic traffic laws. He failed to stop at stop signs. He drove erratically enough to attract police attention in the middle of the night. These aren't sophisticated detective techniques that caught him. This is basic law enforcement 101. The man who represents the archetype of the intelligent serial killer was literally undone by the same things that get college kids pulled over on their way home from parties. No clever detective work needed. No complex forensic analysis. Just officers doing routine traffic enforcement. Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair on January 24, 1989. Hundreds of people gathered outside the prison to celebrate, some holding signs that read "Roast in Peace" and "This buzz is for you." The lesson? You can be as charming and manipulative as you want, but if you can't follow basic traffic laws and keep stealing cars, you're gonna get caught. Ted Bundy proved that even the most famous killers are just criminals who can't help making dumb decisions. The summer of 1977 in New York City was absolute chaos. A serial killer was randomly shooting young women and couples, sending the entire city into panic. He called himself the Son of Sam, and sent taunting letters to police and newspapers, claiming he was commanded to kill by a demonic dog named Harvey. David Berkowitz murdered 6 people and wounded 7 others during his reign of terror. The NYPD had hundreds of detectives working the case around the clock. They had psychological profiles, witness descriptions, composite sketches, and massive public fear driving the investigation. But what finally caught the Son of Sam? A parking ticket. On the night of July 31st, 1977, Berkowitz parked his cream-colored Ford Galaxy near a fire hydrant in Brooklyn, because apparently, when you're out committing murder, proper parking etiquette is just too much to ask for. While his car sat illegally parked, Berkowitz walked to a nearby park and shot Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante as they sat in their car. Moskowitz died from her injuries. Violante survived but lost vision in one eye and suffered permanent damage. A witness named Cecilia Davis reported seeing a man acting suspiciously near the shooting location. She also mentioned seeing a police officer writing a parking ticket for a car that was blocking a fire hydrant right before the shooting happened. This seemingly minor detail would crack the entire case wide open. When detectives started cross-referencing all parking tickets issued in the area that night, they found one issued to a David Berkowitz from Yonkers. They looked into Berkowitz and discovered he lived near the area where one of the earlier Son of Sam shootings had occurred. His car also matched descriptions given by several witnesses from different crime scenes. Police decided to stake out his apartment building. When they arrived, they saw Berkowitz approaching his Ford Galaxy. Through the car window, they spotted a rifle sitting in plain view on the back seat, along with a duffel bag. When they searched the vehicle, they found a machine gun and a letter addressed to the NYPD about planning another attack. When they arrested Berkowitz on August 10, 1977, he didn't resist. He actually smiled at the officers and said, "Well, you got me. How come it took you such a long time?" As if parking illegally while murdering someone was some kind of genius criminal strategy. Let's appreciate the absurdity here. This man terrorized one of the largest cities in the world for over a year. He had the NYPD completely baffled with his random attacks. He sent cryptic letters claiming supernatural forces controlled him. He created one of the biggest manhunts in New York history. And he got caught because he couldn't be bothered to find legal parking while murdering someone. Not advanced forensics. Not a brilliant detective breakthrough. A parking ticket. The same thing that annoys normal people when they're running late, became the downfall of one of New York's most notorious serial killers. David Berkowitz is currently serving 6 consecutive life sentences at Sullivan Correctional Facility in New York, where he'll remain for the rest of his life. All because parking laws apparently didn't apply to him. Israel Keyes wanted to be remembered as one of the most intelligent, methodical serial killers in history. He studied other killers like Ted Bundy and BTK, learning from their mistakes. He traveled across the country to find victims with no connection to him. He even buried kill kits in various locations years before using them, containing weapons and supplies for future murders. Between 2001 and 2012, Keyes is confirmed to have killed at least 3 people, though he claimed the number was closer to 11. He raped, tortured, and murdered victims across multiple states, always careful to avoid detection. Keyes had rules. Never kill anyone close to home, never use his own vehicle during a crime, never leave forensic evidence. He would fly to random cities, rent cars with cash, commit murders, and fly back home to Alaska like nothing happened. For over a decade, this strategy actually worked. But in February of 2012, Keyes broke his own rules. He kidnapped 18-year-old Samantha Koenig from a coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska, where he lived. He murdered her and kept her body in a shed for 2 weeks while he went on a cruise with his family. When he returned, he staged a ransom photo to make it look like she was still alive. Then Keyes made his fatal mistake. He demanded ransom money from Samantha's family and told them to deposit it into her bank account. When they complied, he used Samantha Koenig's debit card to withdraw cash. Multiple times. In multiple states. This guy who had been so careful for years, who planned everything down to the smallest detail, apparently forgot that ATM machines have cameras and debit card transactions leave digital trails. Or maybe he just thought he was too smart to get caught. Keyes withdrew money in Alaska, then Arizona, then New Mexico, then Texas. Each transaction was tracked. Each ATM had surveillance footage. The FBI followed his trail like breadcrumbs, leading straight to him. On March 13, 2012, Texas state troopers pulled over Keyes in a rental car. Inside, they found Samantha Koenig's debit card, her cell phone, and a weapon. When FBI agents interrogated him, Keyes eventually confessed not just to Samantha's murder, but to multiple other killings across the country. He described murders in Washington, Vermont, and New York. He admitted to burying kill kits in different states. He talked about his crimes with disturbing pride, but he refused to provide specific details about most of his victims because he wanted to maintain control over the investigation. On December 2, 2012, while awaiting trial in an Anchorage jail, Israel Keyes committed suicide in his cell. He slashed his wrists and strangled himself with bedsheets, taking most of his secrets to the grave. The irony is painful. This man spent over a decade carefully planning and executing murders across the entire country. He successfully avoided detection by being meticulous and disciplined. Then he threw it all away by using a victim's debit card like he was just making a routine trip to the ATM. Israel Keyes wanted to be remembered as a criminal genius, but instead he'll be remembered as the guy who got caught because he couldn't resist using a dead girl's debit card to buy gas and snacks. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, terrorized Southern California during 1984 and 1985. He broke into homes in the middle of the night, murdering, raping, and robbing victims ranging from children to elderly people. His attacks were completely random, which made him nearly impossible to predict or catch. Ramirez killed at least 13 people and assaulted countless others during his spree. He used different weapons, different methods, and attacked different types of victims. The randomness created absolute terror across Los Angeles and San Francisco. People started sleeping with lights on, buying guns, and installing extra locks on their doors. The police were desperate. They had almost nothing to work with. Ramirez left behind very little evidence at most crime scenes. He wore gloves, moved quickly, and seemed to vanish into the night. The few witnesses who survived described a tall, thin man with bad teeth and dark clothing, but that wasn't enough to identify him. Then on August 24, 1985, Ramirez made a mistake that would end his reign of terror. He broke into a home in Mission Viejo, California, and attacked a couple while they slept. During the struggle, the husband fought back, and Ramirez fled the scene in a panic. In his rush to escape, Ramirez jumped into a car parked nearby and tried to steal it, but the car wouldn't start. Frustrated and panicking, he abandoned it and ran to another vehicle. This one started, and he sped away into the night. Here's where Ramirez's stupidity becomes crystal clear. When police arrived at the scene, they found the abandoned car he'd tried to steal. Inside that vehicle, on the door handle, was a perfect fingerprint. Just one clear fingerprint, but that's all they needed. The LAPD rushed the fingerprint to their new computerized database system. This was cutting-edge technology for 1985. Within hours, they had a match. The fingerprint belonged to Richard Ramirez, a 25-year-old drifter with a criminal record for minor offenses. On August 31, 1985, police released Ramirez's name and photograph to the media. His face was plastered on the front page of every newspaper in California. When Ramirez walked into a convenience store that morning, completely unaware he'd been identified, he saw his own face staring back at him from the newspaper rack. He tried to run and carjack a vehicle in East Los Angeles, but residents recognized him and chased him down. A group of angry citizens beat him with metal pipes and held him until police arrived. Officers had to protect Ramirez from the mob that wanted to kill him on the spot. Think about this. Richard Ramirez had terrorized millions of people for over a year. He'd committed some of the most brutal crimes in California history. He'd evaded one of the largest manhunts ever conducted, and he got caught because he touched a car door without gloves on. One fingerprint. That's all it took. Richard Ramirez was convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death. He died of cancer on June 7, 2013, while still on death row, all because in one moment of panic he forgot to wear his gloves and left behind the evidence that destroyed him. So there you have it. 5 serial killers who thought they were untouchable geniuses, brought down by mistakes so stupid it's almost hard to believe. A floppy disk, traffic violations, a parking ticket, a debit card, a single fingerprint. These weren't master detectives using incredible technology or brilliant deduction. These were basic, avoidable errors that anyone with common sense could have prevented. The truth is, most criminals aren't criminal masterminds. They're just people who think they're smarter than everyone else, and that arrogance becomes their downfall. Sometimes the thing that catches a killer isn't brilliance, it's their own stupidity.